Late at night, a man ghostly put the baby in front of the door of the nursing home and took the money out of his pocket and stuffed it in. He left quietly. At that moment, a couple came out chatting. One accidentally stepped on the baby. The baby cried out loudly. The woman lifted the curtain of the door. The child in front of her startled both of them. The baby was ugly as hell. He had wrinkles all over his skin. The man wanted the FBI to handle the matter, but the kind woman decided to adopt him. She carefully took him back into the house. She also sent the child to a doctor for a medical examination. The results of the examination were not good. All his organs were failing. His limbs had hardened. He told Lisa to prepare herself mentally. Lisa held the baby and said to the elderly, "Welcome our newest addition." And then she gave him a name that rang a bell. "Tom, here he is." The old folks all came over to see the baby. Not only were they not intimidated by the baby's looks, they even made jokes about it. "Oh my god. He really looks like my ex-husband." And so it was. Tom miraculously survived. At only 7 years old, Tom looks like an old man, but he was still a child at heart. Because of his physical condition, young Tom is confined to a wheelchair. He was often attracted by the sound of children playing. Finally, at a party, Tom faltered and learned to walk. Miracles kept happening to him. For a few more years, Tom lived younger and younger. He went from a bent double crutch to an old man with a straight back. The old people found this particularly amazing. Just then, the old man's granddaughter came running over. She had beautiful blonde hair and a hat. The girl's big blue eyes instantly attracted Tom. He knew it was impossible for him and her, but Alice didn't mind him at all. The two of them played together every day. A few more years passed. Tom's body had an abnormal change. Do you believe in turning back time in the world? That's right, such a thing has happened to him. Tom grew up like an 80-year-old man, but he is living younger and younger. His body became stronger and stronger. At the age of 17, he packed his bags and left home. He went to work with a sea captain. Alice joined a singing and dancing troupe in New York. Tom would send Alice a photo by mail every time he went to a place. And so it was. Another 10 years went by. At the age of 26, Tom returned home. He was now a middle-aged man. His hair had grown thicker. At the same time, Alice also came to visit the elderly in the nursing home. It's been 10 years. Alice didn't recognize him at first glance. It was only when Tom spoke, she realized the man in front of her was Tom. She couldn't believe her eyes. She hugged Tom happily. Now their looks are not so different. Tom had the idea of pursuing her again. He came to the New York Opera House with flowers to find her. Alice has to be with different people because of work commitments. Tom was neglected. He left in frustration. Back in the nursing home, he begins to live his life as a normal person. As time passes by, Tom grew younger and younger in the opposite direction. One day, Tom received a letter from the mailman. Then he hurriedly came back to New York. No need to guess. It must be because of Alice again. So this is what happened. Alice was out on a trip. She was accidentally hit by a car. Her leg was broken on the spot. After that, she might not be able to dance anymore. Now she is lying alone in the hospital. Her boyfriend was nowhere to be seen. Tom came to the hospital and woke her up. Alice looked at Tom in a haze. The man in front of her was familiar and strange. Tom had become a handsome young man, but she was pale and hurt. Alice didn't want her to see her in a mess. She had the heart to drive Tom away. Tom chose to stay here and take care of her in secret. A few more years passed. When Tom came home one day, Alice stood out from behind him. 20 years apart, the two finally passed each other 3 times when they were of similar age, officially came together. They went to the sea together to relax, witnessing the miracle of rocket launch together, drinking orange juice on the beach together. They had a lot of wonderful times. Tom lived younger and younger because of the reverse growth. They can't grow old together, but they will cherish this short happy life. It wasn't long before Alice had a baby in her belly. Tom heard but worried, because he could feel deeply. He might not have a chance to be a good father. He didn't want to see the baby growing up, while he was slowly getting smaller. Shortly afterwards, a healthy baby fell to the ground. Tom looked at the growing child. He quietly left his bank book. He left Alice and the baby with a heart of gold. He wanted Alice to find a normal father for the child, so that they can live a normal life. He didn't want the children to suffer discrimination because of himself. He didn't want to be a burden to Alice. Tom also left some letters for his daughter. Most of the letters were apologizing to his daughter. He said that he had not been a good father. "I also want to be your father. There is nothing more important than this, even if it's just for a second." Tom came to India penniless to survive. After another 10 years or so, Tom showed up at Alice's dance studio. Now Tom is a young man, and Alice's face is a little more haggard. Here, he saw his grown-up daughter. He also met the child's adoptive father. After Tom left, a few more years passed. Alice received a call from the Child Welfare Center. She rushed to the place. Tom, who was 10 years old, had Alzheimer's. He had forgotten everyone and everything. Alice dropped all her work. She started to take care of Tom every day. Time passed. Tom became smaller and smaller under Alice's care. Eventually, Tom grew into a baby in Alice's arms in her old age. He slowly closed his eyes. In different ways, the two of them, they went to the same end.